Good evening, all. My name is, and this is my world of stuff. I'm doing a slightly different video tonight. I was going to do a couple more reviews, and they are on the way. But I thought that tonight, Monday night, I would just do something slightly different. I'm up in the cinema room, which I have spoken about on previous videos. The cinema room, which I'm putting together, converted garage at the moment. And when it is done, I'm going to do a full video tour so that you can all see what it actually looks like. But there's still bits and pieces to be done, a little bit of fine-tuning, a little bit of finessing, a little bit of electrical work on a couple of the lights. But what I thought I would do, as you might have noticed in previous videos, I am decorating the walls with lots of classic film posters, which I've had framed. And quite a few of them are in situ, quite a few of them are waiting to go up. So I thought what I'd do is show you the posters which I am putting up in the new cinema room, explaining why I've picked those particular films, and throwing it open to you guys if you've got a similar arrangement, or if you've got a man cave or a special room, which is for your hobbies and things, if you like, what sort of posters you've got up, and any hints for sort of decorations for cinema rooms and stuff. It isn't a massive space, it's a converted garage, plenty of room, but I want to make the most of it, and I am quite a fan of film posters. I want to have quite a few, but I don't want to make it overwhelming. Anyway, I'll show you what I've put up so far. Some of them are up, some of them are waiting to go up, so I'll show you the posters which I have so far selected. Okay, so the first two on the wall opposite the doors you come in, a couple of absolutely classic posters. This is The Wicker Man. This is one of, I would say, possibly my favourite film of all time. In 1973, British. Well, it's described as a horror film. And yes, I suppose it is sort of, it has horror elements to it, but it's more what happens in it that's horrific rather than the story itself. It's sort of that Hammer period, late Hammer period. It was not a Hammer film. Directed by Robin Hardy, starring Edward Woodward and Christopher Lee. I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, catch up with it as soon as you can. But I really like this poster because it evokes that sort of paganism that is the theme of the film. And it's I like the headline, which is taken from the Boston Globe: pure, brilliant, spine-tingling fun. I'm not sure that fun is quite the word I'd use for The Wicker Man, but there we are. I've also got, just underneath, I've got the classic poster for Alien in Space, No One Can Hear You Scream. A nice stark image, space, sort of alien pod thing in the middle, and the classic tagline for the film. What I've done with these posters, what I've gone for, is favourite films, but also films that had really good posters, because I think that a lot of them are classic sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, and some more up-to-date ones, but I think a lot of the classic films of the 50s onwards have the best posters, the most imaginative artwork. These days, I think posters just tend to be art images of photographic stills, and they sort of represent the film, but not in a particularly creative way. And I really wanted to pick some classic films and classic poster images. Down here, waiting to be put onto the wall, we have a poster for Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. I think this is from a re-release. Back to thrill and chill you, Dracula, the vampire that lives on human blood. Slightly camp poster, actually, when you look at it. Imitated but never duplicated, but nice and colourful, considering it was the 1930s and in black and white. And that one is probably going to go in this wall just under the window. As you can see, there's still a bit of work to be done on the walls and things before any of this stuff goes up. But they're probably going to go there with some other classic horror posters. Other ones that have already been mounted are these. It's okay on the wall, just above the mini fridge and popcorn machine. I've got these three. Now, these three I've had for a while. I had these mounted in my previous house when I lived in Cardiff. Again, very colourful, striking images. The classic Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's, probably still his best film, to be honest, but it's a really evocative poster done in the style of an old pulp comic magazine. Next to that, I have The Great Escape, my favourite war movie of all time. I'm not a big fan of war movies, but this is just a great film. It evokes memories of those Christmases when it always got wheeled out on BBC One or BBC Two. The classic, of course, the Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough. And just a nice, colourful, really nice poster. And I love those sorts of blurbs, from a barbed wire camp to a barbed wire country. They made The Great Escape. Brilliant. Next to that is The Day the Triffids. Now, this is my favourite book, but not my favourite film. The film version from the early 60s isn't great, because as some of you may know, the film only ran to about an hour, based on the book. so they had to pad it out for half an hour with completely extraneous material with unrelated characters. However, that was really my first experience with Day of the Triffids, because I didn't read the book until some years afterwards. And again, I like this poster. I like that logo, the Day of the Triffids. Beware the Triffids. They grow, know, walk, talk, stalk, and kill. Really lurid sort of 60s horror stuff. But I would certainly agree with, from the greatest science fiction novel of all time, because it is my favourite book, my favourite science fiction novel. I just like the poster, and it represents the film, even though the film itself isn't particularly fantastic. Okay, and on an inner wall, sort of a jutting pillar sort of thing, you'll see a couple more posters. This cinema room, although it's my cinema room, I've sort of put it together. My brother, who will also be using it, it's going to be a nice little retreat for us to watch films. We're both film fans, and it's only fair that he has a few posters that represent some of his favourite films as well. And here we have one of them. Enter the Dragon. It's the Kung Fu classic from 1973, starring the late Bruce Lee. My brother is a huge, almost fanatical fan of Bruce Lee. Even now, he still devours new books and magazines that have anything new about Bruce Lee. And this is the greatest Kung Fu movie ever made. I'm not a massive Kung Fu film fan, but this is a great action film in its own right. And it's a really nice poster of Bruce Lee in the centre, with John Saxon and Jim Kelly surrounding him. Yeah, it's a really nice, it's sort of a Bondian type Kung Fu film if you've never seen it. Below that is another one of my favourites, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. This is, again, one of my favourite films from the early 60s. Hitchcock at his best, adapting the short Daphne du Maurier story. It's one that pops on television all the time. It's always been re-released on DVD and Blu-ray. It's just a great film, and I love the fact that, as you know if you've seen it, I hope you have, it's about birds that suddenly change their behaviour and attack humanity. But, spoiler, I think I can spoil a film that's 60 years old, can't I? Yeah. There is no explanation for what's happened. You know, the birds terrorise people, and there's no explanation for why it's happened. And that, in some ways, is sort of creepier than if you do actually have some sort of laboured explanation for why what's happened has happened. That's The Birds with Hitchcock in his prime. On the opposite wall, we have two slightly more vintage, I suppose. My favourite British film of the last 20 years, Shaun of the Dead. This is a film I can watch anytime, any place, whenever it's on ITV2. I can watch it. I'll bang on the DVD or the Blu-ray. I can watch it. It's just such a well put together film, and it sort of cemented my admiration for Simon Pegg, Nick Frost and Edgar Wright. Just a great film. Below that is one of the more subtle posters from Jurassic Park. Again, it's an iconic film from 1993, where we really believe that dinosaurs could come back to life, and one of Steven Spielberg's best films. And I really like this understated poster, which, I don't know if you can tell in this light, it sort of shows the gates leading into Jurassic Park, hinting at the horror within. Yeah, it's a poster for a great film. And down here you will see, not yet on the wall, is a poster for the classic 1933 King Kong, which is the best. And that's a really nice, evocative poster as well, and with that sort of arched logo, Kong there looming up out of the forest as Fay Wray's character is about to be sacrificed. Just great. It sort of tells you so much about the film. And I just think it's a really good poster, and that one's going up a little bit later on. Okay, over on the wall nearest the screen, we have two more posters. These are A3 posters of what is Doctor and the Daleks. I just love this poster. I'm really fond of this film. I remember this back in the 60s when it was first released. I remember seeing this when I was on holiday as a young lad in Torquay. My brother took me to see this while my parents went out for a meal, and sort of cements the fact that I've been a Doctor Who fan for a very long time. And I must have been watching Doctor Who on television to have wanted to go and see this film. But I love the use of the vivid sort of Technicolor pictures, the ranks of Daleks, the ray guns, and now on the big screen in colour. It's a really nice, colourful poster. Below that, another one from my brother. He's a big James Bond fan. One of his favourite Bond films is You Only Live Twice. Sean Connery's, almost his last film. From 1967. It is still a great action-adventure film. This is a really nice poster of Bond. It's an unusual poster, actually, of Bond having a lot of attention from a lot of geisha girls. Probably wouldn't get away with a poster like that these days, but yeah, it's unusual. It doesn't depict any of the action and things, because there's a lot of action in this film, as you probably know. But it's an odd poster, but it's Bond, one of the best Bonds, I think. And over on the other side of the screen, two classic science fiction films. I love this one, The Day the Earth Stood Still. One of the great science fiction films from outer space, A Warning and Ultimatum. Michael Rennie, Patricia Neal and Hugh Marlowe. The story of the day the Earth stood still. You'll know this one, of course, the black and white classic of the spaceship that lands in San Francisco, I think it is. And yeah, an alien arrives to deliver a warning for the peoples of Earth, a warning which all these years later we've still not heeded, unfortunately. But all that, yeah, a nice camp classic film, and a lovely, I think it's a really nice poster with that blood red backdrop. Fantastic Voyage, starring Raquel Welch, Stephen Boyd. The story of a group of scientists who travel into a body, are miniaturized and travel into a human body to try and find out what's causing. I can't remember exactly how the guy being shot. Can't remember exactly, but yeah, they go in to conduct a medical procedure on this guy. Just a great film. I haven't seen it for ages. It's not actually one of my favourite 60s science fiction films, but I really like the poster, and it is a classic of its type. And down here we have a couple which haven't been put up on the wall yet. Following on the vampire theme from Dracula, which you saw earlier, we've got Interview with a Vampire, which is one of my favourite films. It's a bit dusty, I'm afraid. It's been in storage for a while. But that's going up soon. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Antonio Banderas. It's one I'm due a rewatch, actually. Great film from the, I'm thinking, early 90s. And then Brides of Dracula. It's a Hammer starring Peter Cushing. It's one of the ones that doesn't actually feature Christopher Lee as Dracula, but I think it's an unusual poster because it's sort of two-tone with this sort of turquoisey colour and the white lettering and some quite haunting imagery. And that'll be quite a nice one. Must get some more Hammer, actually, because I'm a fan of Hammer, and I don't think they're represented very well on the wall. Okay, that's all the posters that have been mounted so far. I'm not going to show you this selection very quickly. I'm just going to run through the ones which are still to go up. There's about 15 there, I think. If you're interested in how I've put them up, I've got these command sticker things, these double-sided things. You sort of fold them up, they're sticking on either side. I put one at the bottom, one at the top, and that tends to hold them up quite well. As you can see, this is the Jurassic Park one. A couple of stickies on the side there. That ain't going anywhere. That's nice and secure. But if you do want to take them off, they're quite easy to take off. So they're secure on the wall, but if you want to get them off, you can get them off. But, you know, these aren't going anywhere for a while, so I'm quite happy with them as they are. So the ones that are left to put up, then it's a selection here, and I'll just run through them very quickly. This is one I have very, very fond memories of. It's The Rocketeer from 1991, I think it was. It was a Disney action film, which sadly didn't do very well because it was supposed to launch a franchise, as we call them now. But it was supposed to be a series of these films. It's about Cliff Secord, I think an air pilot who discovers experimental jet rocket pack, and he uses it to become involved in nefarious Nazi activities in 1930s, early 40s Los Angeles. A really good adventure film. It's such a shame they didn't do a sequel, but I really like this poster, which has got the Rocketeer hurtling through the sky, got this Art Deco background and this really nice sort of lettering. And I really like that poster, and I've just picked up the graphic novel of Rocketeer Adventures by, I think, David Stevens, which I picked up from Amazon, just arrived today. So I'm looking forward to getting that one on the wall, because that, as I say, is an old favourite of mine. I was a big fan in the 70s of the disaster movie era, and I've got two posters here from two of the best films of that era. Produced by Irwin Allen, the master of disaster, as they called him, who on television did things like Lost in Space and The Time Tunnel and Land of the Giants. But he went into doing these big budget films in the 70s, and this is one I really remember very well, The Poseidon Adventure. The story of the SS Poseidon on January the 1st is struck by a 90-foot tidal wave and capsizes, and it's the exploits of a group of survivors led by Gene Hackman to work their way from the bottom of the ship, or it's sort of the top of the ship now, up to the bottom to get out. It's a really thrilling adventure. And in fact, the Doctor Who Christmas special from 2007 with Kylie Minogue, it was sort of based on the idea of that sort of disaster movie in space sort of thing. A great film. This is actually one of the first film I recorded when domestic video recorders first became available in the late 70s. I recorded this one on the TV, and it was just amazing to actually have a film at your disposal to watch whenever you liked. And there's a really nice colourful poster. And again, I was a big fan of those disaster movies, Earthquake and so on, and that's a really nice one to have. Along with another one from the same genre, The Towering Inferno. For a while, this was my favourite film. I remember being blown away when I had to see this. Starring Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, again by Irwin Allen, introducing the story of a huge tower block. As you can see from the poster, one tiny spark becomes a night of blazing suspense as the tower bursts into flames and the firefighters have to struggle to get everybody out. A real star-studded cast of big names from the 60s and 70s, most of whom are sadly no longer with us. But it's a really good film, a really good adventure film, and I think that's a really striking poster. As I said, it's a film that when I saw it in 73, for a while it was my favourite film because it was just so spectacular. Go back to the 50s now for this one. This is Them, which was directed by, I don't know who it was directed by actually, but that doesn't matter. This is one, I remember watching this back in the 70s when they used to do those great science fiction seasons of films on the BBC. Basically, giant ants, irradiated giant ants, migrate from the Arizona desert, find their way to the storm drains of Los Angeles and go on a bit of a rampage. It's just a great film, and I'm surprised that Hollywood hasn't revisited it with all the digital effects technology they've got today. They could probably do wonders with this, but this is just a classic film of its era. The ants are all huge, sort of giant props. It's a really good film. If you haven't seen it, it really is well worth a look, and it's obviously it's of its time, obviously it's quite dated, but I just remember seeing at the time and being sort of really impressed by it. And those are the sorts of posts that I wanted on the wall of those films that inspired my love of cinema, and particularly genre cinema. And this one, interestingly enough, isn't particularly a favourite of mine, but I do like the poster. Earth versus the Flying Saucers. This is one of stop motion animation Ray Harryhausen's films. You've probably seen the clips of these circular spaceships crashing into various landmarks in America. But I love the poster here, Flying Saucers Attack. Warning, take cover. It's just such a lurid, sort of colourful cover. The film is not wonderful. The film's a bit dull, actually, but I think it's a really nice cover. And that'll go quite nicely with the retro feel that some of these posters actually have. Now, this one, strictly speaking, isn't a film. But again, this is one that I got from my brother, really, because he and me were big fans of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. back in the 60s with Robert Vaughn and David McCallum as Napoleon Solo and Ilya Kuryakin, the top agents for U.N.C.L.E. And the series was a huge hit in America and in Britain. But what they used to do in Europe, particularly in Britain, where the series had two-part stories, they would cobble them together into 90-minute films and release them on the cinema circuit. And they actually did very well. There was about 6 or 7 of these TV episodes blown up into films. And this was called How to Steal the World. And it's a nice Bondian sort of cover, because The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was very much an American Bond type thing, really. Hard punching, hard loving, action heroes, saving the world. And that's a really nice, colourful poster that's sort of fairly emblematic of the series itself. So that's a nice little one. This is another classic, another Harryhausen classic, and this is a real, I keep saying classic, but this is such a good film. Jason and the Argonauts from the early 60s again, with effects by the incredible Ray Harryhausen. The story of Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece, which has got the memorable encounter with Talos, the bronze giant. It's got Neptune. I see with Neptune holding the rocks apart so the ship can come through. It's just great. And of course, at the end, you've got the incredible battle with the living skeletons. A terrific film. And again, what a great poster. A lovely piece of artwork. And I love that sort of lettering for the title of the film. As if it's sort of carved out of rock. Yeah, another real classic. The next one also is one which isn't particularly a favourite of mine, but it's a classic. And I do like the image. It's Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. An epic drama of adventure and exploration. The film remains a bit of an enigma, but it's a stately sort of science fiction film, and it's a proper science fiction film. It doesn't have your monsters and all that sort of stuff. It's about something, a peculiar space phenomenon, if you like, but it's a very majestic film, and I do like the poster. A sort of almost like a humdrum poster of a sort of space station suspended above space with the logo 2001 A Space Odyssey underneath. I think it's just quite striking, and it is such a great, legendary film. I think it's one that really had to be on the wall. Bit more Hitchcock for the next one. This is North by Northwest, starring Cary Grant, Eve Marie Saint, and James Mason. This is one of the great Hitchcock action films, and the cover actually sort of depicts the main dramatic moments in the film. If you've seen the film, you'll know about the crop duster sequence with Cary Grant being chased by this plane, and then you've got Mount Rushmore in the background where the exciting finale takes place. And again, it's very much sort of a thriller poster, and it's got that sort of look about it. And I like that sort of white space at the top as well. It's just quite sort of, it draws your eye to it, but doesn't detract from the actual image. And it's a great thriller film. If you've not seen it, it's worth tracking down. This is an interesting one. Not a particularly outstanding film, but I've been on a bit of a Vincent Price kick lately, as I might have mentioned in a recent video. And I like this poster. This is really lurid. House of Wax from, again, late 50s, early 60s. That sort of time when films were just starting to push sort of sexuality a little bit more, perhaps. This is the story, and again, I haven't seen it for years. This is Stereo Vision 3D, the ultimate dimension in terror, about this spurned waxwork designer who gets revenge by turning his victims into wax, broadly speaking. It's a nice, lurid sort of horror poster from a film which I do like. It's not my favourite film, I haven't seen it for years, but I just thought it was a nice poster, and I did want to have some more retro 50s and 60s stuff. And again, another one of my favourite films with a very unusual poster. This is the original 1967 Planet of the Apes, starring Charlton Heston. What an interesting poster I think this is. You've got a little blurb at the top explaining about astronaut travelling through centuries to find out, well, I won't spoil the ending. I know you've all seen the film, but what an interesting poster though, because it really doesn't tell you much about the film. You've got a picture of Dr. Zaius, you've got the logo, Charlton Heston's name, and you've got an image, stylized image of human slaves trapped in a cage. It doesn't tell you a great deal about the film, but I think it's really nice, stately, sort of majestic, understated image. And I like that red, it's sort of quite standout. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that one. I wanted some sort of Planet of the Apes. That was a nice little picture. A bit more bondage now, for two more of the next two. Again, this is one of the great Bonds, isn't it? It's Goldfinger. I think it's the second Bond film after Dr. No, isn't it? I mean, it's just a great film. Everything he touches turns to excitement. Sean Connery at his best in Bond. Yeah, I was there at the time. I had the Bond car. It's just one of the great Bond films, and it's really, I like the poster with those images. Use of black in the background and the lettering. It's really striking. And another Bond. Excuse me. We have On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This is from 67. This is the 68 or 69 possibly. George Lazenby's one outing as James Bond. A great film. I think over the years its reputation has really improved. Lazenby, there's all sorts of issues with Lazenby. He was actually very good. He had the physicality, but I'm aware that he was a bit of a cock on the set and did make things easy. And I think he acted the star when he wasn't yet a star. Could have been Bond for a long time, but he sort of blew it after this one film. But it is a great film, and I really like this poster. It's sort of really action-packed with the skiing and the explosions, and Bond there in his tuxedo with Diana Rigg in her first post-Avengers role as the woman who eventually steals Bond's heart. And there's a tragic ending. Of course, it shows how good Lazenby could be when he, at the end of the film, if you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. And it's a shame he didn't do himself any favours, because I think he could have become one of the best Bonds if he'd stuck around. But of course, Sean Connery came back for the next film, and the rest is history. Couple more to go, 3 more to go. This is actually a Spanish poster. I only realised that a couple of days ago. But I like this image. This is, because I didn't want it all to be science fiction, even though it's my main interest. This is Bonnie and Clyde, the 1967, the brilliant biopic of the legendary gangsters, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, sort of breakout roles, really. But I really like this image of them in the car with the bullet holes, and it shows that sort of sense of wild adventure that these two characters went on their trail of rampage across America in the 20s. Bonnie E. Clyde, of course, it's Bonnie and Clyde. But I just think it's a nice, unusual image, and yeah, I think it's a really nice little poster. The last two now, and these are both classic science fiction films, both from George Powell. The first one is The Time Machine. I know that certainly one of my subscribers will be quite pleased to see this picture, HUL's Time Machine. This is one I'm going to be doing a retro film review of very soon. It's on its way. This is great. This is a great film. It is very, very true to the book. It's the story of a time traveller who travels to the future and finds out the ultimate fate of the human race. Rod Taylor, Alan Young, Yvette Mimieux. Lovely, I love that sort of yellow, overriding yellow colour, and then the logo and the image, which sort of depicts a lot of the action from the finale with our time-travelling hero fighting off the hideous Morlocks. It's great. It's a really nice poster. As is the final one, before I sign off, War of the Worlds. It's another, I think it's another, I suspect it's another foreign poster. It's hard to tell. H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Again, a really great film. This is George Pal's version of War of the Worlds. This, of course, this updates the story to the 1950s in America as well, and then the sort of Victorian British version. But it's, again, this is one of those films I remember seeing back in the 70s, 60s, 70s as part of my education into the world of science fiction cinema. And I just love this film, and I love this image, which I've not seen before. Sort of a subtle image of a Martian claw descending from space and pouncing on a couple of humans who are, of course, Gene Barry and his co-star, whose name I'm horrified to say has temporarily eluded me. But yeah, it's a really nice poster. It's a great classic old science fiction film, War of the Worlds. So there we are. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly self-indulgent look at my posters for my new cinema room. I've got another 4 on the way, and that's going to be the end of it then. I don't want to have them all over the place. I like to have some space. I don't want them to be too sort of on top of you all the time in here, so all you can see is images of films, too distracting. But I'll certainly have a few more up and some blank space here and there. But as I say, I wanted to go for retro posters, classic sort of colourful posters, evocative artwork and lettering and stuff of the sort you don't really get on modern posters. So I hope you don't mind me indulging myself by going through those today. You can see the room in the background. There's still a lot to be done. I've got the ceiling mount get in place for the projector itself. And there's a few other cosmetic bits and pieces. But once it's all done, and I'm happy with it all, I will do a proper tour so you can see exactly what I've done. As I said, it's not a big... I haven't done all the acoustics and the cinema seating and stuff. I just wanted a nice, comfortable space to sit and watch films on a big screen, and that's what we've achieved so far. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed this little video. If you've got your own man cave and your own posters, let me have a look at what you've done and how you've done them. Any ideas you might give me for future rearrangements of things. But let me know I'm always interested to see how other people have their posters and things, because I think that's, especially if you're a film fan, I've always wanted to do something like this, so I'm really pleased I've managed to get it done to a reasonable standard. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon for the next video. And until I do see you, keep taking the stuff.